podcast, our second episode, where I have the pleasure of talking with Ramzi Rizk. You are the co-founder and CTO of EyeEm. You are also the organizer of Photo Hack Day. You are, as it says on your Tinder profile, developer, photographer, pianist, reader, and a recovering academic and an amateur. I want to start with the last part, amateur. What does amateur means here, and why is that included in the description of how you see yourself?
I still don't know where you found that.
Well, I swipe right, so that's the good thing.
Because I'm an amateur at all of the above.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, right? I'm into way too many things to be an expert at any individual one of them. So, amateur.
Cool. So, Ramzi, we met in 2013 to a startup party where we both got a little bit drunk. Gave me some great piece of advice on life, which I'm still listening to. And I was when I met you the first time, I was very drawn to the passion you had for the field you were in, photography and technology. Can you explain a little bit first to the people who don't know what EyeEm is, and what is your personal story to that?
Sure. So, I think we're one of the earliest companies that grew big out of Berlin. We are a photography company, whatever that means. We started with a community supporting amateur photographers at that point, mostly mobile photographers, who everyone else was looking down on, supporting them to get the exposure that they deserve through exhibitions, through competitions, through publications as well. Built some apps, and then we grew that to around 23 million photographers today that use EyeEm for the same purposes. They connect with one another, they learn, they interact, they get discovered, they get published, get exhibited. At some point we realized that obviously taking on VC money means that we also have to make revenues, and we want to hire the best people. So we realized that we had an opportunity of empowering these photographers to make money with their photos, with that notion of making money together with our community as opposed to making money on top of our users. And we launched a marketplace to do exactly that. That was 2.5, 3 years ago, I think. The marketplace grew pretty well, competing with some of the established people that are doing what they call stock photography. We look at it as a bit broader than just stock. The main challenge we faced was one that was aware to us from the very beginning, which is all of this content. You know, there's a huge volume of content that is being created every day, and the challenge that we have today is not one of creation per se, but rather one of consumption, one of discovery. So how do we find the best images? How do we make sense? How do we find the context of photos? And you only have to go through, Facebook or Twitter or whatever to scroll down to realize that there's a lot of crap and there's a lot of noise. And so our vision was from the beginning understanding imagery, understanding visual media. And as we moved forward, we realized that this technology also had that we needed to build technology to automate the process of looking at that volume of content that is coming in and figuring out which of it can sell, which of it has commercial value, which of it has aesthetic value, and training machines to understand this stuff to automate that entire process. So this is where we are today. We're a community in one sense, we're a marketplace in another, and we're an AI company in a third.
And if I should just go back a little bit, so your own personal connection to photography, where did that come from?
I've been taking photos since I was 6 years old. We were talking about that earlier. This thing right here, noisy chair, is what got me hooked. I got this when I turned 14, I think. Back then it was already around 20 years old, and I've been shooting with it since then. So I've always loved that. I've always loved the notion of being able to capture a moment and having that moment mostly mean something to you rather than anyone else. And there's a lot of interpretation despite being a very visual medium. I can take a photo of someone and the look on their face could say something to me different than what it says to them. And I've been taking photos since day one. I mean, I was one of the very first people on Flickr. Fell in love with that community and saw the potential of actually connecting people through technology. And then I studied technology in parallel, and so it was like a natural natural thing for me to actually do both at the same time.
Because that thing, like that's always the very impressive thing when you meet a CTO that is so passionate about technology, and I would call you guys a little nerds, you know, because you have to be a little nerdy to understand some so complex things sometimes. And then on the other side, having this creative skills of like photography, can you feel that, you know, through the job of building EyeEm and also, you know, now you say you are an AI company, do you feel that these two skill set of being, you know, solving very complex things and using the creativity, that's something that have benefit EyeEm?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, we are nerds. We're all nerds, but I'm actually more of a photography nerd than a technology nerd, right? I think nerds, it's whatever that meant a few decades ago. Today, it's kind of the age of the nerd, right? This is our time, and having the luxury of actually combining my, so to speak, the stuff I learned with the stuff I'm passionate about that I also learned, definitely gives you an advantage. And I think no one can really build something to scale without having that sort of passion, obsession with what they do, be it technology or be it photography. So,
you know, I guess you must hear that a lot, but people comparing EyeEm to Instagram. How do you feel about that? And could you describe the biggest differences? Like,
yeah, I think that's the question that gets asked the most since 2010. We were here first. Funnily enough, the EyeEm as a community and EyeEm as an app with filters and so on was there before. But I love Instagram. I think it's great. I think it changed a lot of ways we think about communication. We think about documentation, and it's empowered a lot of people to come out of their shell and to show that they have skills. It's connected the world in an amazing way. So I think Instagram is an amazing product. Obviously, also quite lucky launching at the right time, at the right place. There were a bunch of other companies that were doing the exact same thing that failed. We never really ignored that messaging. You know, the Instagram of Europe, the Germany's Instagram, whatever. We never saw ourselves as that. We saw that as a way to leverage everything from getting VC money on board to getting press and getting marketing. But our vision was always different. We were never talking about documenting your life through what we're doing. We're talking about empowering amateurs that thought they loved or had a knack for photography and helping them become better at it. And I think the two are very complementary. We tell our photographers that they should be on Instagram. That's where you get the reach. But if you want to earn money and if you want to sort of make it to become a professional, then EyeEm is the place. Yeah.
So besides the product itself from EyeEm, you also just you have this EyeEm Photography Festival coming up in September. This is the fourth time you're running it. Can you tell a little bit about why you guys are organizing that next to the app? Is that the community?
Oh yeah, for sure. So I mean, the community has always been the heart and soul of everything that we do, and we started the very, very, very first thing we ever did with EyeEm was an exhibition and a festival celebrating the 3,000 odd photographers that uploaded photos to some stupid website that I built back in 2010. So it's an intrinsic part of us, of our community, of our brand, and the fact that it's the largest photo competition in the world doesn't hurt. And the fact that we can bring people together to talk to technology and art and the business, the marketplace, and connect these with one another and have a nice little party doesn't hurt either. And it's one way of that we give back to our community. That we celebrate the photographer of the year, the winners of the competitions, and these people get a lot out of it. I mean, last year I think the photographer of the year got sort of a 3-month trip to Asia with some major top photo agencies, just because he won the EyeEm Photographer of the Year. So it's a pretty big event, but it's at heart it's just celebrating the community and the creativity.
Okay. So another product you recently launched was the videography. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean not much, right? It's a natural next step. there's a lot being created with video. I think video has seen this amazing evolution over the last few years with everything from Boomerang to Snapchat. You know, these short format content. People were asking for it, and we're experimenting with it. It's still very early days. It's to us just another one of the experiments that we do a lot of experiments with both technologies and products. And we said, why not? You can still be as creative with video. It's slightly more challenging, I think, than with photography, but we're playing around, seeing where it goes.
Cool. So another question about technology.
Yeah.
If we go more deep, like I'm not a nerd in that, so I'll try to stick.
You're a nerd.
Stick to my paper here. TechCrunch recently said that EyeEm beats Google, IBM, and Amazon and Microsoft and other companies for image recognition, which is pretty great, pretty amazing. So how must the CTO feel about that?
I don't trust TechCrunch to be honest. Obviously,
Obviously,
I had a lot to do with that. So I mean, there's two sides to it, right?
Yeah.
There's the validation.
Yeah.
This is not bullshit. This is actual fact. You know, we ran benchmarks where we outperformed all of these guys, and the reason is a lot of this AI stuff is driven by data, and we have access to data in a way that no one else has, because we have the community that provides us on demand, more or less, with whatever we need. So. And we're using it in a very applied, very specific purpose, which is automating that process of every photo you upload becomes available commercially and how to figure that out. That being said, everyone is doing AI and everyone is talking about AI, and it's kind of like at this point. But
everybody's talking about big data, but no one has it.
Pretty much. I mean, we have the data, right? And we have an amazing team that works on this stuff. I would be kidding myself if I told you that, you know, had the people at Google working on computer vision read that article and decided we need to destroy these guys, it would take them a few months and they would beat us at this game, right? Because Google versus EyeEm, 100 times bigger and 10,000 times more resources. It's a snapshot in time, put it that way. It's a snapshot, and it's a very good one. I think it's a great validation for what we've built, but we move forward. I mean, press is typically meant for the outside world, not for the internal.
It's freaking amazing. Congratulations. So you're planning speaking at South by Southwest in 2018 about will AI change the creativity of the future? Do you think AI will be more creative than humans?
So the title of that article was supposed to, or that talk was supposed to be, will AI change the future of creativity? So make mistakes, right? Make mistakes. This is something that interests me actually way more than beating Google at a benchmark. I think what we're seeing here is a seismic shift in terms of how we look at work, how we look at productivity. And we are stuck in a world, we were talking about this earlier, we're stuck in a world that in a lot of ways is still following the rules or shaped by the rules of, from 2 and 3 generations ago. I do think it will genuinely change AI or whatever you call it. I mean, it's calling it AI is just sexy. Calling it matrix multiplication just makes people roll their eyes. It's not intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence. It's very highly optimized, algorithms that are really good at statistics. And yes, they will change a big part of how we work, because pretty much everything that can be automated will be automated, and pretty much everything else will be augmented one way or another.
And why do you think this topic is so close to you then?
I mean, a variety of reasons. I think one of them is the fact that we're building something for photographers, for photo editors, for image curators. And at the same time, we're saying we're training algorithms that can decide, instead of you, weak human, they can decide what is good and what is bad. And people are genuinely terrified by this. No one is terrified by the fact that a calculator can do math better than we do. But they're terrified by the fact that an algorithm can say what is beautiful and what isn't. And to me, I started getting interested in this when I realized that just pure technology and being passionate for it is not enough. When you see the community that we're serving is actually scared by this. They're worried because some of them also work as photo editors, and we're telling them the whole job of curating photos fully automated
the whole job of curating content. You sit down and you try to figure out what a brand identity is, and then you show them images that fit that brand or corporate identity, and they can run their marketing campaigns with. We're saying we can automate a huge chunk of that. We can take the photo, we can take the whole manual labor out of it, and say this photo will engage with that target demographic on this platform much better than that photo. So to me, I think it's a bit of a responsibility on the one hand, and it's, I guess, intellectual curiosity on the other, and definitely, a good dose of trying to understand, having some sort of social responsibility, trying to understand what the actual impact is of building technology like that does threaten jobs to a certain extent.
Interesting. If we should go back a little bit to EyeEm and you guys building EyeEm, you are 4 founders, and you've basically been together for the last 7 years, and we all know having co-founders and being together is basically a marriage, more or less. How would you say that, you guys have dealt with that?
This helps. I think it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely the longest relationship I've been in. Definitely the most annoying one, but the reality is, I think, same as with marriages. You have a responsibility that goes a little bit beyond you. You have I wouldn't call them children, but your child is your company, your team, your community. We've grown into our roles. We started from the very early days. We were aware of what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were. Obviously, we all have pretty huge egos. That makes it a bit difficult to admit when we're wrong. But we've learned to work together. There's a ton of challenges. There's challenges every day. But the one thing that is super interesting is, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much we fight, at the end of the day, when shit hits the fan, for lack of a better term, you know that we've got each other's back, and we have we have a shared value set, and that foundation just basically helps us survive everything else.
And I guess something that also is like, when you think about 7 years in startup life is dog lives, more or less, right? It's quite a long time. Have there been times, and also recently, where you kind of said like, okay, my job is done here, I build a great community, EyeEm is in a great, or do you still feel hungry for new things that you can create with this company?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's always times you're always doubting, and I think if you stop doubting, then you get lazy, and then you die. We're not at that point that we go like, our job is done here. There's always enough to do. The trick for me is actually to always try to find the motivation somewhere. And for the first many years, it was always obviously the community and the product is just amazing motivation. It still is to a certain extent, but you sometimes get used to it, right? You get used to the term is, I think, hedonistic adaptation, which means that just when something good is happening all the time, it becomes the norm. When something bad is happening, that becomes the norm. So a lot of the things that would inspire me back in the early days stopped at some point. Obviously, there's still moments where some 15-year-old photographer somewhere in northern Finland makes a few $1,000s a month and can finance their whole summer because of a photo they took on EyeEm, and that's sort of an amazing source of pride. Paying out the first $1 million to amateurs. Just there's always these moments, but day in day out, I think the main thing I get out of bed for is actually at this point the team, the family that we've built, the team that we've built, both a sense of responsibility and sort of, I guess, I'm regularly kind of a little incredulous about the fact that I get to work with pretty smart people who wouldn't hire me if I applied to work for them. So it's a bit of a luxury.
So you always have to start the game.
Yeah. So that's it, right? And that's enough motivation for now.
So a last philosophy questions is like, I have a friend who, I think it was 2 days ago, we talked about life over a very big bottle of wine. And we talked about, this thing about suddenly you look back and you are in a position where you've been for a very long time, and you look back at the other path of life you could have chosen. And then she read a poem to me, is that life is about finding peace with your unlived lives. If you could think that you could have a chance going back 7 years and not have been doing EyeEm, it kind of sounds like, you know, you found your send point because technology and photography, but do you sometimes think that there would be something else that you would have spent the last 7 years on? If yes, what? Bam.
So
2 minutes left.
No, bam. It's not the question. It's not a very philosophical one, actually. I think I've been asked that question probably second as much, half as much as often as the Instagram one. Okay. It's a good question. There's always different paths. My latest answer, when someone asked that to me 3 days ago, coming from yoga, so very zen. My latest answer was 7 years ago, Bitcoin was at $0.01 per Bitcoin. So I would have bought a ton of Bitcoin and then retired. I don't know. I've never looked back and tried to sort of go down a different path. I think I was born sort of happy with at peace with my unlived life, so to speak. There's no point. I'm very realistic. There's a ton of things I could have done better. There's a ton of things I would have loved to do, but this is who I am and this is where I'm at, and I'm kind of happy with it. So
cool.
Would have probably done it again.
Last, I guess there will be a lot of EyeEm fans and followers that's going to see this podcast.
Okay.
They're basically all in here. But can you maybe, the last thing, reveal a little bit about what is the future of EyeEm? What is gonna happen? What is gonna be the next things that people are gonna see from you?
I mean, a lot of the stuff that is there's a lot of stuff I obviously can never talk about. We experiment a lot. We've been experimenting a lot from day one. I do see us growing to be, to be a really big player in the space of empowering people for the content that they create, and I think that's something that is becoming more and more interesting. I just learned about this website called Patreon that does the same thing, where you can get people to pay for your content creation. The whole model, put it this way, and this is maybe not exactly EyeEm, but this whole model of social media and of ads running on social, the same as the whole model of news, is something that is, I think, slowly destroying our world. And I'm happy that we found a way where we can exist as a business and survive as a business and grow as a business without sort of leveraging people. We're working together with them, and I think that will continue. I see us growing to, there's a ton of amazing new features coming out, partnerships and so on, that will hopefully, get to a point where we have the first 10,000, 100,000, 1 million photographers living off of this, purely off of what we do at EyeEm. And on the other hand, on the technology side, I think we, always pushing that envelope and trying to get to the point where, which, or the furthest point possible, where machines can augment our creative processes, empowering us to go back to actually doing what analog photography is all about, which is, breathing out, holding your breath, seeing that beautiful moment, and pressing that shutter, and not having to worry about anything that happens after. So maybe that symbiotic relationship will develop a bit further and become one, morph into one being.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to follow the journey.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ramzi.
My
It was a pleasure.
So
You're
it's
almost
the only way to catch up, right?
Yeah, so only as intelligent as 4 years ago. Thank you so much.
Good.
And thank you all guys for coming.
Thank you.